This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com interview. What I'm looking at today is 2020's Breach, directed by John Suits. And let's be clear, Breach is not a good movie. In fact, in a lot of ways, it's pretty bad. Though, what does that mean? Because good is a value judgment. It means different things to different people, and frankly, is meaningless in most senses of the word. So, for me to say Breach is a bad movie is saying nothing. The more pertinent question is, why is it bad? That's what matters. And Breach is bad for so many reasons. The first reason is production design. If you recall, for instance, Alien, it had a certain visual aesthetic, which was a character in the movie in a sense, in that it forwarded the plot. It forwarded the atmosphere of the movie. If you recall Alien, movie, xenomorph, alien creature, invades this space-going refinery, kills people, chaos ensues. And certain sections of this refinery were lots of darkness and water dripping and chains, and it was ridiculous. It makes no sense for a spaceship to have water leaking on it. Why is that? Because it's a spaceship. You're away for probably months at a time, and you need drinkable water. That it's leaking all over the place is stupid. What Alien was doing was evoking an atmosphere, an aesthetic of a haunted house, that type of thing. So, that you had that water leaking and all this stuff is really less relevant when you understand why it was being done. I hate it, but I get it. Conversely, also in Alien, other parts of the ship had lots of light, very well designed spaces, and if you recall, the room where Mother was in was all these lights and stuff, evoking a computer thinking. Like if you turn on a computer or a hard drive, is the best example, when it's being accessed, a light will come on, and you will see that light flicker based upon the access to the drive. Some USB drives do this as well. So that's what Mother was evoking in Alien. Not the most logical thing, but it made sense, and it's serving a visual purpose. So it worked. Breach doesn't work. It's an ugly movie, and the production design is a huge cause of that. It's production design without a point. It's production design more in the line of this, or I should say, the production designer thought, this looked awesome, as opposed to, why would this actually exist in this space? And that's a problem, because the production design doesn't make sense. The ship is very cluttered. The walls are covered with thingamabobs and thingamajigs and stuff that's serving no real purpose other than, let's put this on the wall. It's ridiculous. It just ruins the look of the film, and it doesn't make sense. And this is exemplified by the control room of this ship, the Hercules, I believe USS Hercules or something like that. It has all these things all over the place. It's a mess. And the thing is, why is it a mess? I think what they're trying to evoke is the look of a typical cockpit of an airplane, for instance, which is to say there's lots of stuff, lots of things all over it. But the thing is, that stuff, in the case of an airplane, actually serves a genuine purpose. And there's a logic to the layout. You may not understand it, but that doesn't mean there's not a logic to it. Conversely, with the spaces in Breach, it's just stuff thrown on things because movie. For instance, if you look at the floor of this spaceship, there are panels, and there's like a diamond-shaped gap between each panel. Why is there a gap? Is there water leaking, in which case you would need to have a drainage point. It's little things that contribute to this movie looking really, really stupid and nonsensical, and that's a problem. The next problem is the acting. It's not bad for this type of movie. I want to say B movie, but I'm being kind. Though it's not terrible. The thing is, though, it stars Bruce Willis and Thomas Jane. The latter, a really good actor. Well, Willis isn't bad, just, in my view, lazy. In any case, I understand that having these two actors will help sell the movie in foreign markets. I get it. But the problem with that is they are there for a minimal amount of time. Jane more so than Willis, though neither actor is necessary, in the sense that the roles they play aren't particularly demanding and anyone could have played them. Though, as I said earlier, these two actors will draw people in. These two actors will make the movie easier to sell in many markets, I think. So how do you solve that problem? Only have one of them. Either you have Thomas Jane or you have Bruce Willis. You don't need them both. You get rid of one of them, it's going to probably save you a lot of money. Because I get the feeling these are not the most inexpensive actors on earth. Get rid of one of them. And that way you can put the money into places where it needs to go, such as production design, for instance. Most movies will rise and fall on the strength of their story. This is even doubly so with a movie like Reach, which doesn't have production design to lean on, which doesn't have great special effects to lean on. So it needs a story that at least works. Unfortunately, this story is ridiculous. It makes no sense. The movie revolves around humanity in the future screwing up Earth, which we're doing right now, so art imitating life. In any case, we find another planet aptly named New Earth, and there have been migrations of people to this new planet, and the Hercules is the last ship left to go to New Earth. Now, already the story has a few holes. For instance, they leave a whole bunch of people on Earth. The story doesn't quite tell you why. Why couldn't the ships return back to Earth after depositing their cargo, their human cargo, on this new planet? I don't know. The story doesn't even pretend that the question is there. It just kind of ignores it entirely. Though in any case, I want to say 30,000 people, maybe more, maybe less, are suspended animation aboard the Hercules, and they are on the way to this new planet. Though there's a stowaway aboard, and it's an alien organism with no other intention but to kill the crew. Now, even this aspect of the movie is botched. Why is the alien there? How is the alien there? Well, how is answered, but it's really stupid. Though there's no background given as to why this thing even exists. The movie alludes to the fact that it's older than time, perhaps, or man at any rate, and it was created in a lab. It alludes to things, but doesn't give you anything to actually grab onto. Though the creature essentially is like a parasite. This is not a very original story, by the way, not even close. So it kind of spreads from crew member to crew member eventually. Though how it spreads is also not well established. Some crew members are killed by it. Well, killed by a person that's infected, I should say. And they then become essentially space zombies, very much in the vein of John Carpenter's Ghost of Mars. Though This is making no sense. How is this thing spreading? What does it look like? Nothing is logical about this movie. It's some of the sloppiest writing I ever seen. And it's not like someone couldn't have seen this. It's fairly obvious how sloppy it is, but no one seems to care, so it goes on. Another element is that there are a faction of humans who think we fuck up things and we shouldn't go to New Earth. While being true, we do fuck up things a lot. The idea that these insurrectionists, if you will, supposedly released this creature on the ship makes no sense. No, wait, let's take that back a little. It only doesn't make sense in a context that no one is built up enough to explain this behavior. In the sense that it's a suicidal behavior. Unleashing this thing on this ship, a thing that exists apparently only to kill and nothing else, because movie, is a suicide mission. And that's okay if it were explained as such, but it's not. It's just simply someone thinks we're gonna fuck up New Earth, which we will, because human, though he decides to release this creature, which will kill not only the people on the ship, but eventually the people on New Earth as well. You have to show us this. You have to show us how relentless, how focused, how single-minded these terrorists, for lack of a better term, actually are. You don't get to just have a character reel that off at one point and just move on. There's no sign prior to us knowing this that there's anyone nearly relentless enough to do such a thing. So that doesn't resonate very well. And speaking of the story, there's so many odd inconsistencies. For instance, when you see the people defend themselves against these creatures, they're originally using projectile weapons, essentially just guns. Now that's okay in and of itself. Never mind there's some really bad muzzle flash, but they're using projectile weapons. When Thomas Jane's Admiral enters the picture, his troops have laser weapons. Now it's important to keep in mind, we're essentially in a big can. And I don't think people firing guns and lasers in a big can makes a lot of sense, because you might, I don't know, pierce the big can, letting in space, creating a puncture, which in turn creates vacuum. That's a problem. But it's also a problem this movie doesn't care about. It's irrelevant to the movie. And it might even be irrelevant to people who watch it. But I'm willing to bet those people don't watch movies much, because it's fairly obvious. In fact, if you recall the television show Babylon 5, they had to devise a weapon to use because of the fact that they're in a space station, and to pierce the hull would be really bad for everyone. So they had to find a way around it. It's called good writing. And this movie has none of it. And most movies starring Bruce Willis tend to be not very good. At least lately, I should say. Because Die Hard is fucking awesome. Though his recent work tends to be pretty weak. And he tends to sleepwalk through it, to be totally honest. At least it appears that way to me. And Breach isn't significantly different. But the thing is, Breach is so not good on so many levels, Willis's performance is almost excusable, because there's so much stuff not working right, he's the least of this movie's problems. And that's a pity, because, oh, I forgot to mention, the title of this movie, as I mentioned already, is Breach. Yet nothing is actually breached. It makes no sense. The original title of this movie was Anti-Life, which is a little better, though not a lot. A problem with that is, keep in mind there was a movie called Life recently. And Life is a much better movie, frankly. And Life is not even a great movie. It's just better than this. And the ending of Breach, oh my God, is the dopiest thing. It's ridiculous. It makes sense in a way. It takes place in a logical course of events, which is to say the movie depicts the events that lead up to it. But it's the dopiest ending. This is, by most metrics, not a good movie, though curiously watchable. It's not the worst thing you'll see, to be sure. It's also not very good. So what do you think? This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow. Peace.